This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Tuesday, October 6th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of coronavirus, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Zimbabwe suspects a bacterial disease is behind the deaths of more than 30 elephants, but wants to carry out further tests to make sure. We warn you that some of the images are graphic. Here is Okoye Oko.
Zimbabwe suspects a bacterial disease called hemorrhagic septicemia is behind the recent deaths of elephants near the country's largest game reserve. Fulton Mangwanya, Director General of Zimbabwe's park authorities, told a parliamentary committee that 34 dead elephants had been counted so far and that post-mortem examinations had shown inflamed livers and other organs.
Going forward, we have enlisted the services of external partners like in the UK, South Africa. They are going to take, or they've taken some samples which they are going to analyze and assist us with the proper identity of the disease that has killed our elephants in Hwange National Park.
Hundreds of elephant deaths have also been seen in neighboring Botswana, which authorities have linked to toxins produced by different types of bacterium. Experts estimate Zimbabwe and Botswana could be home to half the continent's elephant population. Mangwanya said they were not worried about the deaths because they had only occurred within a small area. But he added that they would continue to work on identification and corrective measures because it would be dangerous to take it for granted.
That was Okoye Oko of Reuters reporting. The United States is conducting a nationwide census that helps determine the amount of federal funding for cities and states. So when a federal judge extended the census for another 4 weeks, Somali-American volunteers in the Midwest state of Minnesota reached out to members of the diaspora to get them counted. Maxamoud Mascari has our story from Minneapolis, narrated by Phil Dearking.
Mohammed Ibrahim and Hudu Dahir are going door to door to make sure their Minneapolis neighbors are being counted in this census. They say the response rate among Somali Americans in some neighborhoods of the Minnesota capital is less than half. Jaylani Hussein is the executive director of the state chapter of the Council on American-Islamic Relations.
The funding from the federal government is tied with this census. So many programs that Somali communities and other minorities need or benefit from depend on how the census is executed. The housing, healthcare, schools, and home care are all affected. If we don't count and the federal government cuts or reduces the funding, that will hurt big time.
Community volunteers say some people are reluctant to complete census forms because they are concerned about how their information is going to be used. This outreach program hopes to ease uncertainties about the 2020 count.
We want people to know that this is urgent and important, and everyone should take part. Even those who fill the forms, we want them to talk to their neighborhood. We want them to call relatives and other people as well, so that everyone is counted.
Civil society groups are challenging in court a decision by the Trump administration to exclude undocumented immigrants from the census count when apportioning seats in the federal House of Representatives. You fill this out? Phil Dearking for Mahmoud Massadeh in Minneapolis.
An executive at the Nigerian energy company Rensource is pushing to get more women engineers on rooftops, installing solar panels to provide power to homes and offices in Nigeria. Her goal is to address the difficulties female engineers face in securing jobs while broadening access to energy in the country. Micheal reports.
In Nigeria, it's unusual to find female field engineers. But that is slowly changing as a new crop of female electrical engineers are being specially recruited by Rensource, a renewable energy company. Anu Adesolum, the chief operating officer at Rensource, is at the forefront of this initiative.
In terms of trying to promote people up, making sure that in the future we're able to have supervisors and managers that are experienced field female engineers, we realized that we would have to take it from the start. So then we started a program where we recruit female engineers and basically train them.
Adesolum says she was inspired to start the training program after she had difficulty finding high-ranking female field engineers. Rensource installs large-scale solar hybrid systems to power homes, offices, or markets. Engineer Esther Adegbaju has been with Rensource since late 2019.
It's really interesting, it's tasking, and I get the opportunity to help people. You know, people have the stereotype about female engineers, but the fact that I can actually do it is very, very exciting, and it's fulfilling for me.
Faced with a population boom that has sent carbon emissions soaring, oil-rich Nigeria is turning to renewable energy in a big way. As the demand for renewable energy grows, Adesolum is hoping to bring more female engineers on board and change perceptions around women in the field.
People are not comfortable with women carrying out physical activities for engineering work, but that doesn't mean women aren't interested in it. They're just not given the opportunity to. And people do feel fairly strongly about it. So we've actually had a husband call. Someone's husband called me and informed me not to let his wife ever climb a roof, even though that's exactly what she wanted to do.
Adesolum hopes this will inspire more engineering companies to hire more women in the sector, in an industry that is still largely male-dominated.
Emma Jele of Reuters with that report. Authorities in Senegal are hoping Tuesday's Muslim celebration of Grand Magal in the holy city of Touba will not become a spreader event for the coronavirus. Tens of thousands of worshippers are gathering for the main event of the Grand Magal pilgrimage, which pays homage to the founder of the Mouride Brotherhood, Senegal's most influential religious order. Senegal was among the first African countries to confirm a coronavirus case and has managed to keep its cases down, partly because of strict travel restrictions and most people complying with the mandatory mask requirement. But some crowds of worshippers reportedly have been spotted ignoring social distancing and not wearing masks. Senegal has confirmed more than 15,000 coronavirus infections and at least 312 deaths, according to Johns Hopkins University. Many students around the world have returned to school after the summer break, but this year's back to school looks very different for families, schools, and educators as the world is still grappling with the COVID-19 pandemic. As schools worldwide struggle to reopen safely, some students are returning to in-person learning, while others are taking their classes online or participating in a model that combines virtual education with in-person attendance. Africa 54 Linomudu spoke with Dr. Esther Gombi, assistant professor at the University of Illinois, about returning to school during the pandemic.
Dr. Esther Ndumi, thank you so much for joining us on Voice of America.
Thank you.
One of the major questions for whether they are teachers or students or parents alike is, how do students go back to school safely during a pandemic?
It's a difficult situation because it's hard, and especially a disease that quickly spreads, and a disease that just that sociality of students coming back. They've been away from the campus, so they're excited to see each other, and maintaining social distance could be an issue. So it's a real risk, but I know that universities are taking as much caution as they can. For example, in our university, we actually have to test twice a week, and it's mandatory. Faculty and students alike. If you really have to be in the university, yes, you will have to test twice a week. That is giving us reassurance that we can be able to quickly know when somebody is infected, then they don't have to come to the classrooms. So those are some of the extra steps that we are taking. And I know many universities are instituting policies, a lot of policies to ensure that we at least can maintain social distance. We can maintain at least all the outlines that are given by CDC. Secondly, also the classrooms are a little bit smaller so that we can allow for social distancing. And a lot of the huge classes, like thousands, are not happening, or if they happen, they are so much staged. So for example, you can have only 50 students in a classroom. And I know that our facilities are really upgrading the cleaning and everything.
In some African countries, what types of dispositions do you know that are being taken? For example, in Kenya, where you're from, what is happening on that front?
So in Kenya, for example, all the schools are closed. And I think while you can look at it and say, wow, this is not a good thing, especially for students that need, 5 months away from school. That's a lot of time. The students need to socially continue learning. But at the same time, when you think about Kenya and many African countries, we don't have that technology and that ability to be quite up to date with the testing and with all the mandatory guidelines that really can slow down the spread. So I think that was a good decision. And then when you think about technology, not everyone has ability to access Zoom and so to ensure that no one is left behind. So Kenya as a country decided, that's it. The school year is done. We will resume in 2021. However, I know we have, countries like Tanzania, they're still open. So I think it also depends. And
what would you suggest as an alternative, as a way for these students not to learn, to lose so many years, so many months of learning? What would you say can be done?
To all the countries, the African countries that are listening, and particularly the Ministry of Education as the leaders, I think we can use this time to really upgrade our infrastructure and to ensure that even within the rural areas, we have central areas where we can have hotspots. I am a lifelong learner. I believe in gaining new knowledge every day and ensuring that no one is left behind during this pandemic. And so it's very important for countries to get creative. We have cell phone. And each family has a cell phone. How can we ensure that there's access, even the least, a lean curriculum that is spread across? Radio too, radio, I remember listening to Voice of America radio. So radio lessons, at least ensuring that there's something. TV, so ensuring that all the channels that are available at the moment can be utilized.
We thank you so much for joining us today, Professor Esther Ndumi. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and thank you, Voice of America.
That was Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu speaking with Dr. Esther Gumbi, assistant professor at the University of Illinois. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover during the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, Kenyans celebrate their cultural diversity with social distance festival. Stay with us.
Hi, you just hi. Nina ukani luka buseni, na chimweo kapena ni malaria.
Let me love you when you come my way. Money baba when you walk away. I wanna make you my woman. I don't wanna waste no time. I say hold up, my mama. You know I'm wanting you. I say hold up, big mama. Can I be the one for you? Tell me where did you come from?
Welcome back to Africa 54. President Donald Trump's coronavirus infection has put the presidential campaign focus back on the pandemic in the United States, which continues to lead the world in the number of infections, now more than 7.4 million, and deaths at over 209,000, according to Johns Hopkins University. The president returned to the White House on Monday evening after spending the weekend in Walter Reed Hospital. VOA's Brian Padden reports that voter reaction across the country has been mixed, with many feeling sympathy for the president, but many also blaming him for downplaying the seriousness of the pandemic and for his failure to follow public health protocols.
Over the weekend, President Trump's supporters gathered outside of Walter Reed Military Medical Center in suburban Maryland as the president was undergoing coronavirus treatment to wish him a speedy recovery.
He's strong, he's a fighter, so I have every hope, but obviously they need to take every precaution.
On Sunday, supporters cheered as Trump briefly emerged from the hospital to wave at the crowd from his motorcade, but some medical experts raised concerns that 2 Secret Service agents were riding in the vehicle with the infected president. A new Reuters poll indicates the outpouring of concern for the president's well-being may not have helped his re-election campaign, with Democratic candidate Joe Biden increasing his lead nationally to 10 percentage points over Trump. And in the same poll, nearly 2/3 of respondents thought the president, who has held crowded events and mocked the wearing of masks, probably would not have been infected if he had taken the virus more seriously. Across the country, voters critical of the president have tempered their concern for his health with harsh criticism for what they see as his reckless behavior. In Wisconsin,
I don't want the man to die from it, and I know he's starting to show symptoms, but I hope he gets a good case of it so he understands how people are suffering and dying and realize how serious it really is.
And in Virginia, where early voting in the presidential election has already begun.
On the one hand, people may feel sympathetic toward him. On the other hand, people may think it's ironic since he's been so anti-mask and all of that.
For its part, the Trump campaign defends the president's efforts to limit the pandemic's impact on the economy.
We can't all just stay in our basement for the rest of our lives. We have to get out there and live our lives and take this on, develop the vaccine, develop more therapeutics, and defeat it.
While the Trump campaign has been mostly sidelined as he recuperates from COVID-19, Biden continues to hold a mix of socially distanced and virtual events where he underscores the seriousness of the pandemic. And with the election just weeks away and an estimated 3 million ballots already cast in early voting and by mail, Trump has a narrow window to make up for lost time on the campaign trail. Brian Padden, VOA News, Washington.
Republican Vice President Mike Pence and Democratic Senator Kamala Harris are to meet Wednesday in a debate that, for many reasons, may make it more interesting and watchable than the typical presidential or vice presidential debate. VOA Steve Reddish takes a look.
It is considered the political undercard, the vice presidential debate.
I think vice presidential debates often are more interesting to watch. The stakes are lower. The participants feel a little freer to say and do what they want.
Wednesday's debate between Republican Vice President Mike Pence and Democratic Senator Kamala Harris has multiple storylines that make it more interesting and watchable.
The historic nature of Kamala Harris's nomination and the fact that a woman of color, first woman of color on a major party ticket, will be debating.
Geraldine FERRARO was the first woman to participate in a vice presidential debate, facing George Herbert Walker Bush, Ronald Reagan's running mate, in 1984.
So I remember there being tremendous concern about the way Vice President Bush should debate the first female on a presidential ticket. And he could be, at times, a very competitive man and certainly was a very good debater, knew his material very well, but didn't want to look as though he was bullying her in any way.
In 2008, voters were eager to see Sarah Palin debate Joe Biden.
The expectations for that Biden-Palin vice presidential debate were so great. It's the only time in presidential debate history that the vice presidential debate had more viewers than the top of the ticket presidential debates. And those top of the ticket debates were not snoozers because they included Barack Obama in terms of historic debates.
Now, President Trump's COVID diagnosis is increasing already high expectations for the Pence-Harris debate.
Vice President Pence was the head of the coronavirus task force. Originally, Trump seemed to sort of take it over from him. But certainly the Harris campaign will be going right for Pence on coronavirus concerns and talk about all the things that they think he did to not handle this as well as he could have.
Mary Kate Carey is a senior fellow at the University of Virginia's Miller Center.
She's got a reputation for being a very aggressive questioner in the Senate Judiciary Committee. She's known for sort of laying these traps and trying to bait people to respond. So she will be a very formidable debater, I think. Pence, on the other hand, is a pretty unflappable guy to the point of sometimes not being very animated at all. The chances of him falling into any sort of trap are pretty small. But I also think he's got an audience of one.
His illness aside, President Trump is age 74. Joe Biden is 77. This vice presidential debate has future implications.
If Mike Pence has another good debate in 2020, as he did 4 years ago, then that really helps strengthen his position as the Republican nominee in 2024. And the same with Kamala Harris, who's obviously, young enough to have a long-term ambition here.
But too much focus on 4 years from now risks losing sight of the main debate objective: defend the presidential candidate they are running with.
I think that we'll see Kamala Harris prosecuting why the Trump should not be returned to office, and then Pence having to defend the record for the past 4 years. And so that will be, I think, an interesting debate to watch.
The vice presidential candidates meet Wednesday evening in Salt Lake City, Utah. Steve Reddish, VOA News, Washington.
Kenya recently hosted its first social distance culture and music event where people enjoyed live bands while sitting inside their vehicles, so there's less risk of spreading COVID-19. The Kikwetu Festival aims to bring Kenyans together despite the pandemic to celebrate the country's cultural diversity. Mohammed Yusuf reports from Nairobi.
One by one, vehicles were checked in to attend the first drive-in cultural and music festival in Nairobi. The two-day event attracted hundreds of people to enjoy music and bonding while in their cars. The experience is new even to the music performers.
It's a new normal, let me say, and it takes a little getting used to. You can see the audience is also like trying to find their way, how to respond to the music, because dancing is a bit, they can't come to the stage. And even for the artists, you talk to the space, you talk to the cars, and you hope people are in the car listening. So it's a bit cold, it feels.
The festival was held just a few days after Kenya eased COVID restrictions. No more than 4 people could be in each vehicle, and people were advised to keep a physical distance to limit the coronavirus spread.
We are in this for the long haul. COVID is still around, and we have to keep safe. We have to observe the rules, we have to social distance. So we don't have a choice but to look for ways of making sure that our people can consume our products like music or events in a safe way.
Those who attended the event were happy to be out after months without a social life.
Yes, this is the first public event I've been, and for sure we've really missed this kind of events, hanging out with our friends.
It's a beautiful evening, and yeah, I think all the Ministry of Health protocols have been kept, and it's good that we are able to be out and we are having fun one more time.
The first time after 7 months that there is an event like this. I love it. And it's a beautiful day, beautiful weather. It couldn't be better. Excellent music. What more do you want?
The event went into the night, but it won't be long before the enjoyment is cut short by the nighttime curfew, which is still in place until later this year. Mohammed Yusuf for VOA News, Nairobi.
A woman and her female-dominated teams are taking on the gender gap in Nigeria's male-dominated auto industry, manufacturing thousands of parts for motorbikes and tuk-tuks. Neka Chile has the story.
Ukamaka Okoye says people are surprised when they come to her vehicle parts business and find that a woman is the boss. But at a workshop in Nigeria's eastern Anambra State, where her mostly female team makes parts of motorbikes and tuk-tuks, she wants to show that women are just as capable of succeeding in this male-dominated industry.
A woman can do what a man can do. And when she starts doing it, she can even do it better than the men.
The government has been running a Made in Nigeria campaign to reduce the country's heavy reliance on foreign imports, and recent partial border closures have also forced many to turn to locally produced products. Okoye says that because they make the parts manually, her business Femco can't keep up.
If I'm to use machine, injection machine, I will get up to 6,000 in a day. But now that I'm doing it manual, at the end of today, we'll end up getting like 1,000 pieces or even less.
But what she does make seems well received. Auto parts trader Micheal Ogbuani regularly buys 1,000 clutch levers from Femco. He lauds their durability and their price.
Like imported one, you can get some 130, 140, but this one you can get 90, 85 naira. So you can see the gap, both rich and the poor masses can get it.
Okoye says she produces 60,000 parts a year.
It's what I love and I'm doing it.
And has no plans to slow down.
Neka Chile of Reuters with that report. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.